Tom Bridges got up and started to walk again through the sludge of the sewers. He had no recollection of how he came to be where he was, but it did not concern him. All it concerned him was how hungry he was. This dark void drilling on his soul, where at the bottom he felt an evil bat flapping its wings ravenously as it screeched with no end, asking for blood. He felt numb and cold, but it did not bother him, just like the lack of light did not bother his vision. He followed through the tunnel in a zombie-like state, and the further he went, the more of these clicking and popping sounds became more common, as if something prowled in the darkness. The sound did not raise any alarm for him. He continued moving forward. In a pitch-black chamber, the sound of something moving in for the kill was heard. A scuffle ensued with screams and roars for a minute or so. When Tom Bridges came out of the chamber, back into the power room, he was holding a monstrous arm. He sat down and sank his fangs on it. A couple of months later, above ground, Daniel met Eloise at the Dreadford Dam. She looked at the distance as he approached.
It's beautiful.
It is. But it is even more as the sun rises. It feels like you are inside of a painting.
I bet it does.
I heard you are the son of the Midnight Fiend.
I am.
He answered, admiring the view, and Eloise recited in jest.
Plead, plead, pray to have your soul cleaned. You can't run or be redeemed. You were taken by the Midnight Fiend.
Daniel looked shocked back at her.
What is that?
Something we sang when I was a child. He's been an urban legend in this city since the 50s. It was scary to learn he was real.
It's scarier than you think. His victims are very real. That song is just in poor taste.
Something that kept children in line, but I see where you come from. In this city, monsters are very real.
Julio's driver parked the car, but kept it running so the companions could get in.
Our ride is here,
Daniel said in a cold manner. As they approached the vehicle, Daniel's phone rang and he answered, listening for a moment and hanging up. Julio greeted them with a gesture, but Daniel had a sour expression on his face.
What is it?
The Midnight Fiend calls.
They cruised the city in silence until they reached the church. Eloise felt like she had crossed a line, but did not know how to bring the matter back in such a fashion that she could apologize for. She just met these people who saved her, and she was already driving a wedge between them. Julio was at a loss. He missed on the discussion and did not know what the Midnight Fiend was, but he could infer they were talking about Father Michael, although he had no idea why he would be called that way. Daniel, in his turn, was thinking about the monsters of Dreadford and how well they mingled among the unsuspecting public for decades. They met Father Michael on the steps of the church, and he was saying his goodbyes to some of his parishioners.
Yes, Betty, be sure to bring the sneakerdoodles for the children on Sunday. Homemade, don't try to fool us with something from the store. God is watching,
he said to one of his parishioners. She laughed in a joyous way as she left. Indeed, the monsters of Dreadford knew how to mingle among their prey. Father Michael took notice of Daniel and his crew arriving, and he signaled the back door. Daniel took them through the side of the church and they met him on the patio in the back.
Excellent, you have arrived. I can see you have a new addition to your crew. Hello, my dear, I am Father Michael.
Eloise, nice to meet you.
She answered awkwardly.
I think you are going to need a name for your little crew very soon. It helps a lot with fame and reputation in our society. Renown can open many doors.
Cut to the chase, Michael. What do you need?
Are we sensitive today?
Not at all, Midnight Fiend.
Daniel's reply made the place very silent. Father Michael's face betrayed him by showing not only his surprise of the remark, but some pain. It almost made Daniel feel bad about the way he treated his sire. Almost.
Well, since we are here only to discuss business, let's cut to it, shall we? Something of note happened. Spectre, the council member of House Orlok, has requested some assistance in dealing with a problem.
Why is it of note?
Because House Strix and House Orlok are enemies.
Rivals is a more precise word, I would say. But we all are united under the king, and so we shall help them.
For a price.
Of course. You need to take this explosive device to this address and detonate it. It's pretty straightforward.
He handed the device, a note and a map. Daniel took the note in his hands and read it.
This says it's in the sewers. How do we know this won't hurt anyone?
Spectre is a demolition expert. He knows what he is doing to avoid breaking the theater.
I'm talking about people.
We have to trust him. Now go, this should be quick.
Daniel and his companions departed, under the wicked gaze of the midnight fiend. In the car, Daniel was brooding in silence. The lights of the street illuminated inside from time to time. Julio thought about the mission. He was an engineer by trade, but had no practical experience with explosives. Eloise sat more comfortably in the back seat beside Daniel, still thinking on how to make amends, but Daniel's demeanor left no space for it. The car arrived at the destination, but the street was still crowded with couples having dinner and young folks bar hopping, enjoying the sweet taste of youth that in a glimpse of an eye would disappear from their lives.
Check it out, over there. That should be our entrance.
Eloise suggested, pointing to a manhole surrounded by safety barriers that read, Bridges Precision Builders.
Yes, but we should wait. There are too many people around here.
Sure. We should look for uniforms. The disguise will help us not attract unwanted attention and will give us the time for the streets to get less crowded.
Daniel offered, and they all agreed.
I can arrange that in a van. I used to work in an oil rig. Just give me a couple of hours.
Perfect, let's move.
They drove into a back alley, and Julio made some calls to Eugene, his uncle, one of the 4 remaining children of Van Arden. After a while, a white van arrived. They exchanged keys, and the driver of the van drove the car away. They put on navy blue jumpsuits and made their way to the manhole. Daniel got the crowbar and opened the cover, and the companions entered the sewers, leaving the familiar as a lookout inside the van. The place was covered by a foul stench. They used flashlights to illuminate the way. Although they could see perfectly at night in pitch-black darkness, they could see as much as any mortal. As they moved, rats and cockroaches got out of their way, hiding inside the cracks on the walls. At certain points they walked through sludge and filth until they got to an open space that looked like it was under construction recently. They saw tools, carts and old dirty clothes that probably were being used as rags that were left behind. There was a generator at one side and metal barrels next to it, some standing, others turned and rolled over. They all seemed to belong to the same company, Bridges Precision Builders. Whatever happened here, these people packed and left quickly. They kept following the map given by Father Michael until they reached a tunnel that took them deeper and deeper into the underworld. Finally, they reached a power room. The place looked like a war zone, and all 3 vampires could smell dry blood in the place. It is faint compared to fresh blood, but they knew it was all over the place. A battle took place here. Daniel walked around and found a toolbox opened laying on the floor, wrenches and screwdrivers littered around it. He searched inside and found a business card that said, Bridges Precision Builders, Thomas Bridges, Contractor. He looked around and he could see that at least 3 people were here, and what he guessed were 2 animals. He looked into the blood spatter patterns and deduced that someone was dragged to the end of the room, and there he found a huge crack on the wall that led to a tunnel.
I think this is what we're trying to blow.
He inspected the inside of the crack with the flashlight and compared it to his map.
What happened here?
Death.
Yes. Someone was dragged to the inside of this hole. It seems to go deeper underground.
He inspected some dry blood he found on the edges of the crack.
Look, someone was dragged out of the room too. Very injured, it seems.
Eloise pointed to fading footprints, made of dry blood as well, going out of the room.
He or she was probably trying to flee the fight.
Daniel inspected the footprints, pointed by Eloise.
Look. The person was injured on the left side, most probably. The footprints are from different footwear. So the person helping stepped on the blood with his right foot, and the injured one was stepping with his left foot.
My friends? What is this?
Julio illuminated a metal barrow that looked as if it was clawed by a creature of significant size. Eloise and Daniel got close to it for a better view. Suddenly, popping and clicking sounds started to echo through the tunnels.
I think we are about to find it now.
Something was moving fast in the darkness, and they could hear it fast approaching. They heard a ravenous scream, but before whatever could reach them, something dropped from the ceiling inside the opened tunnel. They heard the sound of a deadly fight. A man could be heard grunting inside the darkness that was outside the range of the flashlight. The scuffle ended with a sound of bone breaking and a roar. Suddenly, they could hear the sound of many creatures fast approaching, making clicking and popping sounds, growling and bellowing. From the hole, the figure of a man covered in a heavy and long raincoat, heavy boots and a hat jumped out, catching them by surprise. The figure pushed them out of the room in alarm and closed the heavy metal door behind them. His massive hands locked it by an improvised contraption that used a metal lever to block the door. They heard the creatures banging, the metal deforming from the blows. roars and snarls making shivers run up their spines.
Come, the door can't hold them for long.
The man led them through the tunnels back into the area with the abandoned construction, where he took them into a chamber that looked like it served as an administrative area for the construction. Old and dusty boards with work schedules hung on the walls, soiled paper littered the floors, and a punch clock laid broken on a corner. A medium-density fiberboard table sat dusty and dirty in a corner of the room. He signed for them to lay low and stay crouched.
Who are you?
More importantly, what are those?
Julio pointed back at the monsters, whispering as well. The figure shushed them.
Don't move or make a sound.
After a brief moment, they heard the popping and clicking sounds outside the chamber. It sounded as if they were scouting the place after them. They heard grunting coming from one place or another. The creatures were communicating. After a long while, the clicking and popping went away.
I think we are safe.
Are we?
Yes. They might come back, but usually they guard the entrance of the crack when not disturbed.
Give us some answers now, or I will beat them out of you. Who are you?
Eloise tried to intimidate the man, who in turn stood up 6.5 feet tall and not at all impressed. In the rush of the moment, none of them realized how big the man was.
I think we should all calm down and discuss this in a civilized manner.
He's Thomas Bridges, aren't you?
The man turned silent to Daniel, without confirming or denying it.
I noticed that you are still wearing your work boots. Your hands are rough from a life of hard construction work, and you know your way around these tunnels as if you spent a lot of time here. I found this card inside the toolbox in the power room. You are the owner of Bridges Precision Builders. That's why you know about this room. You used to spend a lot of time here?
He handed the card to Tom.
No, my brother did. He took care of the administrative and business side. I always preferred to be more hands-on with the work.
What happened to you?
Tom explained what happened in the power room many months ago, how the light went out, and he volunteered to fix it. When he got there, 2 figures were scrapping with the monsters. One of them got killed and dragged to the hole, the other he saved at the cost of his own life.
Then, one day I woke up here. Don't know how or why. I tried to go back up there, but when I got through the manhole, the sun burned me like fire. I came back, hurt, and after a while I got hungry, really hungry. The construction site was already abandoned. I found some leftovers, but could not eat them. Walking through the tunnels, I got jumped by one of the creatures. I killed it, and on instinct I fed on its blood. Have been doing that ever since. It's like I have become this blood-sucking monster.
Why didn't you go back there at night?
I did. I went to see my family, and on the way I saw myself in a window. I needed to see them so bad, my wife, my boy, but didn't have the courage to meet them.
He took off his hat, revealing a grotesque face, sharp teeth with huge pointing ears like a bat, eyes sunken with a long and pointing nose, with a languid and melancholic expression.
So I just watched them from far away. I came back and tried to live with the homeless, but one day I attacked one of them on instinct. Almost killed the guy. I was so hungry. They chased me away and I came back here.
They were all in silence.
I don't even know why I'm telling you this. I just feel...
We are the same. You are a vampire, Thomas, a Nosferatu. We all are.
Blood goes to blood.
It's not hard to believe now. I mean...
It shouldn't. Not after drinking all that monster blood like you did.
Tom laughed in a sad manner.
Why are you guys here anyway?
The 3 companions looked at each other. The mission they forgot.
Well, it's not as simple as you might imagine.
Daniel explained briefly what they were supposed to do, and how they were uncomfortable setting the bomb, since none of them knew if it could hurt the people and buildings around.
I can help you with that. I used to work for a demolition company, Trajan Demolitions, back in the day, before I started my own company.
Daniel handed the device, and Tom started to inspect it right away.
Why didn't you just blow the crack yourself to avoid the monsters?
Well, I was feeding on them, and also there is this phantom that is trying to kill me.
Phantom, what are you talking about?
There is this figure, draped in white grimy robes, a hooded fellow. He is after me for some time now, and the only place he avoids is inside the tunnels.
Vampires, werewolves, now ghosts.
Werewolves?
I don't know if he is a ghost. All I know is that he can become invisible and he carries a samurai sword. He came after me at least a couple of times and I got away by sheer luck.
The White Ronin? I've heard stories before. He roams the underworld fighting against the tower by himself. Why is he after you?
I don't know.
Maybe a cover-up? Thomas doesn't have a sire, and it is against the king's law to sire without authorization from the council.
It makes sense.
Here, I am done with it. This is not a bomb at all.
What? What do you mean?
There is no explosives, it's just a cool timer.
They were quiet for a moment.
He wanted to destroy you, Daniel. The monsters were supposed to do the job.
But Dome saved us. What do we do now?
We should leave, and Thomas, you should come with us.
Daniel was quiet, his chin supported by his hand with a finger covering his mouth in a pensive manner.
Daniel?
Daniel looked at him quiet.
Do you think Father Michael knew?
Eloise posited, making Daniel quietly turn to her.
Say something!
I'm thinking.
Think faster!
We were hired to do a job, and we are going to finish it. Thomas, you said you worked with demolitions. Do you think you can improvise an explosive to bring down that hole for good?
Hells yeah, I can.
Julio will cover us as we set the bomb, and Eloise will guard him.
Are you sure about that?
Yes, not for Spectre nor for Father Michael, but for the people up there. These monsters already destroyed Thomas's life. We can't let this happen again.
They agreed and started to work. Tom gave the idea to use the metal barrels of fuel for the generator to make the devices, and he would use the tools such as wrenches and screwdrivers left behind for shrapnel. Daniel assisted him throughout the endeavor. Eloise carried the barrels as they were ready, and Julio was acting as a lookout in case the monsters came back. After the barrels were ready, Tom took the point lead. He explained that he could navigate in pitch-black darkness like a bat. Before they left, Eloise approached Daniel somewhat embarrassed.
You know, since there is a chance that we could be destroyed by monsters in the sewers, I wanted to apologize for making light of the story of the Midnight Fiend. You were right. His victims are real, and I should have been more respectful, to them and to you.
Daniel smiled back at her, and she felt a little warm inside.
Water under the bridge, don't even think about it.
You are a cool guy, Daniel. You know, for a Strix.
You are not too bad yourself for a Volkos.
They went back to the power room as silently as possible. Tom scouted the room and ventured inside. He could detect the monsters, but they were far away. He signed to his companions that it was all clear and went back to position the barrels. Julio and Eloise took position, and Daniel started to connect the devices. As they worked cautiously, Eloise set the MDF table with the littered papers inside the tunnel beyond the hole so that Julio could set it on fire to form a flaming barricade in case the monsters attack. Everything was quiet. Julio had his attention fully on the tunnel to give cover to his friends. When out of thin air, he was attacked on the head by the blunt side of a katana. He fell to the ground unconscious. Tom heard the strike and turned and saw a phantasmagoric figure wearing a grimy white robe, luminous blood-red eyes shining inside the shadow of the hood that hid the contours of his face. He positioned himself in a fighting stance.
It's him.
He called for the attention of his remaining companions as he stood up. Daniel stood up as well, and Eloise joined them outside the hole. Silence stood still as they stared off each other. The gleaming red eyes of the White Ronin became evil slits, and he rushed with his sword ready for a blow pointing backwards. Eloise took the point to get on his way, but the attacker skillfully diverted by running on the wall. She tried to catch him but failed, allowing him to pass by her, jump from the wall and rain down a killing blow on Tom's head that would have destroyed him if it was not by Daniel pushing him out of the way in the last moment, using his eagle speed. The White Ronin grunted and by reflex hit Daniel with the butt of his sword, making the detective dizzy, falling to one knee on the floor, supported by his right hand. The swordsman turned again to Tom, but before he could strike him down, Eloise lifted a boulder using her hands and tried to smack it down on his back. The hooded figure dodged, but the attack was close, too close. He regained his feet, but Tom, who played football in high school, tackled him like a truck against the wall, cracking it. Dust flew high, but the blow did not deter the swordsman who, in sheer strength, got Tom away from him, pushing him against the barrels. Tom lost his balance and stumbled in one of the barrels, making him fall to the floor on top of it, making a resounding clang that reverberated through the tunnels. Everything stopped after the loud noise, and in the stillness, the sounds of ravaging creatures along with clicking and popping sounds came into a crescendo as a platoon of monsters fastly approached the room, hungry for blood. Julio recovered his consciousness, and Eloise helped him up. Daniel stood up, rubbing his head to appease the pain, and they all saw in awe the creatures approaching. Their knees trembled. The White Ronin strengthened his grip on his sword, and the monsters fast approached. The first to react was Julio. He took the lead as the others were still shocked, and with a rapid succession of hand movements along reciting his incantations, he pointed his hands to the MDF table and set it on fire along the papers that covered it. In the flash, they could see for a second the hideous creatures. Tom jumped for the device and in a rush finished the final details of the bomb. Daniel took the lead, opening the door, followed by Eloise and Julio, who evacuated as quickly as they could. Tom was next and Daniel was last. In desperation and ill time, Tom activated the device before the door could be properly closed. The explosion was terrifying, and Daniel, powered by his speed, saw it in slow motion. In a succession, one by one of the metal barrels inflated like balloons, an odd and bizarre occurrence that few are privy to testify to have observed. When the metal could not be displaced anymore, it was slowly torn like an ungodly fabric, making way for a torrent of flames and metal that dispersed to all sides of the room, followed by a burst of impact that ripped the door from the wall, which itself was brought down along. The impact also went up, reverberating through the ceiling and the structures above that could not resist the force, and came down upon the monsters and the opening, closing this foul gate to the underworld for good. Daniel was thrown against the wall at his back along the door, and like his companions, he lost conscience. The White Ronin had vanished, and after the explosion he appeared, safe and unscathed. He slowly approached Tom's body, step by step, raising his sword when he realized that although mortally injured, the man was already conscious again, his body trembling with terror and agony at the visage of the phantom that was ready to reap his eternity. Struggling and trembling, reached inside his coat, making his executioner stop in caution. He took out a photograph, himself, before being turned, his wife and son. He offered it to the White Ronin, who accepted cautiously.
Please, just grant me this last request.
The White Ronin stared at the photograph and looked at Tom in silence.
Please, tell my wife. I love her very much.
He grunted in pain.
And tell my boy, he is the best thing to ever happen to me.
He looked to the ceiling and closed his eyes, resigned to receive the killing blow without a fight. In his mind, a flash with his happiest moments passed by. He saw himself working and learning with his father, meeting his wife in high school and how beautiful she was when he picked her up for prom, his son being born, and the time he first held him in his arms, how the little one gripped his finger with strength, and his first football game. He saw his brother and the company they started and his crew that were family for him. Blood streaked his face, running down his hideous languid cheeks, staining the debris around him. But the blow never came. He opened his eyes and the White Ronin was gone. He stood there, laid on the floor, stunned for a moment, and slowly he got up and helped his new friends. One by one, he dug them out of the bricks and debris and took them to safety. After a while, they regained consciousness and checked on each other to make sure all of them were well. When they were sure, Tom made a request.
Guys, do you think you can help me move out of here? I don't know the rules for us, and I don't really know how to live this new eternity thing.
Of course, Thomas. Welcome aboard.
Daniel extended his hand.
My friends call me Tom,
he said, shaking Daniel's hand.
Welcome, Tom,
Eloise said, patting the man on the back.
Welcome, big fella.
On a faraway side of the underworld, the White Ronin came out in an intersection, and there waiting for him was Spectre, draped all in black, wearing a full combat military vest under an overcoat that sported a hood as well. His face covered by a smooth and glossy helmet with no distinct features. He had his hands joined at his back. His voice came out deep and modulated.
Why did you disobey my direct orders?
If you want to destroy him, do it yourself.
My patience is wearing thin with you, Giancarlo. Don't make me punish you.
The White Ronin strengthened his grip on his sheathed sword.
I don't think that's a good idea, Spectre.
Silence hung around the fetid air of the sewers as they stared at each other. After a moment, Spectre turned and proceeded to leave, and as he did, he said,
Consider this mercy. There won't be a next time.